The tipping point was when we all had to look at each other as family members and say, either we're all going down together or all of us are going somewhere else. But the whole goal of the whole thing was, I want to still be able to have Thanksgiving with you and love you.
Well, very excited. Today we have Scott and Stefan Carlson on with us. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We're excited. I dig your background. We tried to make our background feel on brand for us. So I dig it.
Well, I appreciate that. It's funny because I've been doing the podcast. I mean, I'm over 6 years now, and it's kind of a long story, but some people may know we're going to be building a new office, right, for AFT. But I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. I'm in the middle of building a personal house. You're running the company. I mean, there's just a lot of moving elements. And so because of that, in my new office, we'll have a podcast studio set up. So for the time being, I've kind of, done this very remote. Like you guys are in Nebraska, I'm in Phoenix. Well, where I'm going is that finally everyone's like, Brad, you need like a legit setup, like at your office, like we have now. So it's a little bit more formal. I'm in my office and you can see some sports memorabilia behind me because I'm a big sports guy. And, a lot of our clients have played and, I'm definitely a wannabe, a never has been wannabe. So
for sure. No, I love it. It's one of those things.
And we know you guys take your sports seriously in Nebraska. I know how you guys bleed your true colors out there.
Oh yeah. You can come out and come to a Husker game.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah. I think your Husker attendance is bigger than most cities in the US. So
definitely in Nebraska.
Yeah, it's pretty wild out there. Well, I'm really excited for the conversation. I think there's our audience is going to have a great time getting to know you guys, and I think you have a lot to offer, especially being second generation, taking our family business. And just as a quick intro, I know Stefan, you're head of sales, a lot of the marketing, and Scott's working as, kind of the operations CEO. And you guys are working on that EOS model, which I'm familiar with. A lot of people are, visionary integrator, kind of that balance back and forth. You're in a very unique market, I think, which will appeal to a lot of listeners. I think some of us take it for granted. Maybe I'm in Scottsdale, so it's a little bit different market based on the project we work on. Maybe we'll start there. I mean, for you guys to build a reputation in a small market, middle U.S., how has that been just from business development and, finding customers to keep that pipeline going?
Yeah, I think so when my dad started the business, so like you said, we're second generation. When my dad started the business, he primarily he worked at a prior roofing company and then started his own roofing company and then kind of added remodeling to that as it kind of grew. And his biggest thing was solving problems. So whenever somebody had a horrible issue or something was going on a previous roof that they had done for the other company, he was the person that would go in and solve the problem. So he built a reputation of solving issues. And so we came in with a very good backbone of people knew Greg Carlson as a problem solver. And so that really helped build our name in the roofing area, and kind of bled into the remodeling side. And I would say for me in the remodeling side, when I kind of started there about 12 years ago now, my whole thing was I didn't want to do the roofing. I didn't want to be on a roof. And so I really wanted to focus on how to bring that same problem solving to people inside their house rather than it's a leak, let's fix it. And so that was kind of my whole antithesis is how do we, like our wall says behind us, how do we change the way people live and do that not only in a beautiful way, but also in like a function way. And so that's kind of how I would say we've tried to build our reputation, is solving the problem of some people just hate the house that they live in and aren't necessarily, but they love the neighborhood. So how do we change that house to make it really be who they are and who they want to be? And that's how I'd say we probably have gone about it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he's ultimately talking about is trust. Dad was a person that could build trust with almost anyone. And Stefan really took that vision and expanded that into the remodeling area for us. And then we continually build on that trust. And so with our subcontractors, with our owners and that kind of stuff, the main thing with a small town like we're in is, word of mouth, and if anything is going on within a community, you're going to hear about it very shortly, especially within higher end remodeling and that kind of stuff. There's only so many clients. And so when someone says something good about you or bad, whatever it might be, that's where that trust really plays in. And that's where Dad established that foundation for us, developed us as sons, gave us the skill sets as well as the ethics to be able to do that. And then we've just continually built upon it. So.
It's interesting. I mean, you answered some of those questions when you think about pain points of customers, right? I mean, you're trying to identify what those are. I mean, you mentioned trust. I think unanimously, a lot of customers feel, that there's definitely a drop off in trust between them and their contractor, whatever that means, right? Throughout the country, you think about, problem solvers, like looking around corners, being proactive. These are conversations we have with our team. And then you mentioned, how you change people's lives, looking at, how you can make it better for them. And I think you both have seen this. I mean, I'm sure word of mouth is still really important, as it is, especially being in a small town. It sounds like, when your father started the company, that's probably a predominant way of how he got business. How have you leveraged that to advertise in a way, the trust, the follow through, the value you're bringing to expand that base? Because it's a very competitive market. You mentioned, it's small town. And so trying to scale a construction company in a small town, there's a lot of layers to that. And, have you seen other business development avenues where you're bringing in clients as opposed to just word of mouth? And maybe that's how it started with your dad.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of, I don't want to say early, but
No, you were.
I was a little bit early on, like sharing just the work that we were doing and how we were solving those problems on social media. So like, as soon as, 10, 12, 13 years ago, even when I wasn't on staff with my dad, I was like, you need to have photos of all these crazy things that you work on. And so we have built a small brand on, Facebook and Instagram that way. You can look back, if anybody wants to, look back at my horrible GoPro fisheye videos. But that really, we would get people that would stop us, and I still do, and they'd stop us and be like, hey, you're that guy from the video, that I watched about this roof or whatever. And so that has kind of built a brand in a small town. If we have 6,500 followers, let's say 1,500 of those followers are in Lincoln, Nebraska itself. It's probably more than that, but 1,500 people seeing your videos in a small community, gets around. So that was kind of number one. And then as we've grown, I would say we just started doing this last year, and we have the next one coming up this year, is we take, our favorite / best clients out to a very fancy dinner. And just say, one, to say thank you, and two, to get their direct feedback and their direct referrals. So it's like, hey, so-and-so, we did this remodel for you and we really loved working with you. We'd like to have more of you come out to this dinner and tell us what you thought about it. And would you be willing to refer us to other people? So it's not necessarily a scalable, let's put dollars in and get dollars out, but it's a way that we can be in front of our client again, in a very nice setting that makes them feel comfortable telling us or referring us and just building that trust. And I mean, we've done I feel like all the standard things of, making sure your website looks good and the SEO and, all of that side of it. But I would say those are the two big expanders in our, in what we do, is that the kind of those events, those tailored events, and then also just having a presence on social media was a big step up from just where we started.
It's really interesting because you think most of us, you're kind of so busy to get the project going. You're super pumped. You may have a groundbreaking. You finally get to the build. Client's excited moving in, and that relationship hopefully is good. It could be either way, by the end. And so, but a lot of us don't even ask for a follow up or review or feedback. You kind of move on to the next one. I think it's pretty rare that a builder's like, hey, let's go to dinner and have a one on one and just let's be fully transparent. How often is that taking place with your clients? Is it fairly often? Are they doing that? That feedback is invaluable because you made a point, Stefan, that when you're doing that, you're not just asking for feedback, you're asking for someone in their circle that's looking to build. And you phrased it, hey, we loved working with you. We love to work with someone like you. And I think, that's a great point that leads to business development that maybe a lot of us are missing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say it has been it was kind of an idea. We and we'll probably get to this, but we came from a spot of not making any money.
So you're like a real builder then.
Yeah. We came from a spot of not making any money for a while. Yeah. And in the first year we made money, we really just wanted to thank our customers for sticking with us, honestly. Mm-hmm. And just being a part of the CP family. And so it was more of a thank you. And then we were like, man, this is actually a really good event that we could turn into more referrals. And I normally at the end of the night, I always say, this is a super elaborate way to get a Google review out of you. and last year we did it. We got like 14 Google reviews, the next day.
That's incredible.
So it's like, whatever, I don't know exactly the dollar amount that a Google review is worth, but 15 is pretty good. But I don't know if you have anything on
Yeah, I think, as Steph said, it was just an idea that we had coming out of that. I think we also wanted to carry the momentum that we had in terms of coming out of a really tough year, doing very good that specific year and just celebrating it. But then also, we had some very good customers at that specific time that were the type of customers that we're looking at to continue relationships with, as well as find more people within their circles to be able to work with in the future. And the other thing that we do in those events that I really enjoy is we get feedback on what did we do well, but what didn't we do well? Like where can we improve? Because one of our values is we're never stop learning. And so our biggest thing is that we're trying to learn directly from the customer. What do you want? And how better can we provide that to you? I don't know how many different people you talk to that are business owners and they're spending money on X to find out what their customer wants and, hiring these experts and all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, let's go talk to the customer, let's have them out. Let's tell them what they liked, what they didn't like, give them a nice dinner and everything, and just have a great time with them. And many of these people that we have as customers are also friends. By the end of it. And that is, to us, one of the highest levels of compliment of success in a project is that we get to call these people friends at the end of a project.
Yeah. And to answer your original question, it's once a year. We do it once a year. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What's interesting, you mentioned the feedback, as you think about anything you're willing to share specifically, what sticks out? What's feedback they give, maybe from a constructive criticism that you're like, what, that's good. We want to, make those changes.
I think the number one thing that stood out to me was one of our clients that we've had, and we've done 4 projects in one house. And she said, why don't we have a stand-up weekly meeting instead of trying to schedule times where we meet together? And we haven't worked out how to do that yet, but we had the next project we did with them, we were planning meetings farther out. So we were doing we're going to meet here and talk about electrical. We're going to meet here and talk about paint, and we're going to meet here and talk about, cabinetry layout, all of that. So we were way more proactive at scheduling meetings with them rather than just, her suggestion was like, it felt like it was kind of an afterthought of like, hey, we need to talk about this, so let's put a meeting on the calendar, rather than let's figure it out in the beginning and chart it out of where we need to put those meetings. And I would say that's probably the most like tactical feedback we got. But yeah, I don't know what.
Besides, the other one I think is the same thing that probably every builder struggles with to a certain extent, is just punch list. Like the end of a project just feels like it drags and that kind of stuff. And so, that type of deal. And then the other one was just billing clarity. Just making sure that like people wanting to know what that next bill was going to be. Just because it takes X amount of days to pull a draw and everything. And we find, very thankfully, that people want to pay on time. And they get slight anxiety when they don't know exactly what's going to be coming and that kind of stuff, because they want to pay on time. It must be our Midwest values. But, that was one thing that they also said as well, was just a little bit more clarity on those things. So.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, as you speak about that, Scott, when you mentioned billing clarity, we operate as cost plus. I'm not sure which model you're working on. Is it, does it fluctuate because of, work in progress? I mean, what is it that's bringing concern to them from a budget perspective? Because I'd imagine they know what the end goal is going to be, but what is it that maybe gave them a little heartburn, or at least has helped clarify that, since that conversation?
So we do things a little bit different in the billing aspect for our contracts for remodeling. We do cost plus for new construction.
Okay.
And then for projects essentially larger than 500,000, we do cost plus as well for remodeling. And we just decided that yesterday, so that's new. But so we're fixed price. Yeah, we're fixed price on never stop learning. That's what we're about. So we're changing things, adding things all the time. But so we do. I was always under the impression when I first started, it was like 50% up front and 50% at the end. Mm-hmm. And you get that horrible contractor cycle where you get upside down in the job and you're like, we are going to get screwed if we don't finish this job, and or we should go start another job. So we get another 50% deposit. And it drove me insane. And so we got to a place where we're like, why do we have to do it this way? And so we worked it out with a lawyer and made sure that it was legal in our state, but we do a 10% deposit. So let's say it's a $100,000 project. We do a 10% deposit, essentially like a signing deposit. And then we pick all of their materials. So we do all of the selections process, all of the process to know what the project is actually going to cost. And then once they pick that out, we do a 23% deposit. So it's like essentially a third up front. And we order all the materials with that. And then once we start their project, we do monthly billings until we're done. And so that's where he's talking about the billing clarity, where, 1 month we're going to bill for, all of the rough ends, because that's what happened in that month. And then the next month is going to be less because all we did was paint and trim work. And so that's where we needed to clarify to the client, kind of what we are projecting in the calendar and how much that is going to be determined for how much that's going to cost.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, along those lines, willing to evolve. I mean, that's the hardest thing is, you're looking internally, you're getting feedback from the customer, you're looking internally, and it's like, hey, we need to make some changes. you both have referenced that, we kind of laughed about it, but there's some truth there of how hard this business is, right, to be profitable. I don't think a lot of people, unless you're in the business, understand the stress and anxiety of running a construction company. And so with that said, what was the tipping point? You guys mentioned that there was a year that all of a sudden it was great, right? What turned? Was it, you mentioned, you had some key clients, but what specifically kind of took place over a course of time to get you to the point where you had that tipping point and then now felt you were in, a good place to move forward?
I would say, and you can talk about it if you want to. The tipping point really, I would say in 2016, we had a huge hail year in Nebraska. And predominantly, my dad has never chased hail because he just doesn't like insurance companies. And so we had the biggest year we ever had, and we made the least amount of money that we had. And then 27.
So biggest year as far as growth volume, right?
Yeah, revenue biggest year we've had. Net profit was probably the lowest we've had.
Yeah.
And that trend pretty much continued for the next 5 years, essentially.
One year we went up.
1 year we were profitable, 2019, but that was it. And so the tipping point was a long slog to get to the tipping point, if that makes sense. So I'm just trying to give you kind of perspective.
Yeah.
And it was never that we did not, how do I describe it? That we weren't working hard. And so we were trying to figure it out. We hired people to come in, try and help us understand what was going on, what was happening. We had accountants, we had CPAs, we had different people, and it never seemed to pencil out, and we couldn't figure it out. So step one was we got our remodeling pricing right. And we finally got that right probably in 2019. We started, we have a 6-month trail before we realize changes, essentially. That's what I always tell people. It's like, we bid a project and we're not doing that project until 6 months. So if we made this process change, we're not going to realize the ramifications of that for 6 months. And so, about middle of 2019, we made a ton of changes. And it was like, okay, it's improving. And then 2020 happened, and my dad we didn't know what was going to happen with COVID and didn't know anything. And so we were kind of like, hey, Dad, just kind of semi-retire, go home, work, and we'll still work in the office, and we'll kind of figure it out. And revenues for roofing kind of just started to dip because, he wasn't necessarily working in the company. Revenues for remodeling went up, but still at the end of the year, it just wasn't penciling out. And so 2020, good year, not a lot of profit. 2021, good year, not a lot of profit. 2022, no profit, good amount of revenue, going negative. 2023 happened, or is 2020, when did we make all the changes? 2023 has made all the changes, right?
2023 was when we were at the worst spot we had ever been. And that was November, where we were like, we're going to either need to file bankruptcy, close the business. Something has to change because we are, all said and done, we were probably, close to 800,000, almost 900,000 in the hole. And we're a $2.5 million company that isn't penciled. And so, and there was multiple different debts and everything, but so we were just trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And then ultimately, it came down to that we had 3 executive level people in Carlson projects that were all getting paid executive level, and we had 2 individuals that were semi-retired. and meaning that my dad had semi-retired because of COVID and all the other things and that kind of stuff. And it was working okay for a while, and then we sought counsel from a couple of the business professionals that we know, and then we were able to, through our business coach that we have for our leadership team, got in with a guy who was able to come in and give us a really good look at the financials, and paint us a really good picture of what actually was going on. And there were some blinders that we were blind to in terms of some of the wages and that kind of stuff that we had in the company. And so basically we had to have a very hard 3 conversations with my mom and dad and us in terms of, okay, something has to give here in terms of it's either, we need to step out of the company so that you guys can take it over more and that kind of stuff and right the ship, or we need to still be here, and then we need to reposition how much we're all getting paid and that type of stuff. And so ultimately, after those multiple conversations, the biggest thing that we always said out of it is we care about family more than the business. Now, the business is important to us, but family comes first. And so out of any of those conversations, we were focused on maintaining and being a family. So that ultimately led to where we all decided to take cuts to our wages and everything else. And then we also decided with our financial advisor, his name was Mike Shefford, phenomenal guy. We came up with basically a 5-step, 6-step plan.
It was like 12 at one point.
That's true. Of just like, if we don't get this revenue, we cut this. If we don't get this revenue, we cut this. If we don't get this revenue, we cut this. And when I had a plan, because I'm an integrator, when I had a plan in front of me, I could execute. And so we just executed. And all we did is we focused on cutting everything. We cut here we call it Jet Splash, but it's like your
car wash
service. We cut our car wash service. We cut our,
Audible
account. We cut, like if it was a reoccurring revenue thing and it was $100, it was gone, and so we did all that. We had some attrition, just natural attrition that people left and that kind of stuff. We didn't rehire for those positions. And so we just really figured out how to right size the organization. But one of the big tickets was that Dad was, because of those conversations and everything else, Dad just like went, to the wall for us on roofing. And so one year we did 300,000, the next year we did 1.1. And so that amount of increase revenue for us helped pay for a lot of debts. And so
problem solver,
100%.
You put something in front of him that is a problem that he can solve, and then it's pretty clear what needs to happen.
100%.
And he could have decided, screw you guys, you get out of the company and I'll come back in and do my thing again. But thankfully, to have parents that care about us enough and our futures enough to go back in and take that lower salary and work their butt off as well, just showed their character and their care.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and so basically from 2023 November is when we decided that. And then 2024, ultimately we paid off almost $650,000 of debt throughout 2024. We maintained a net profit of around 8% that year. It was however 8%. Yeah. And then this year in 2025, the beginning, we paid off our last major loan to the bank, and it was fun because I was able to write an $85,000 check take it into the bank, and the teller was like, "So you want to pay for all of this at one time?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to pay for all of it."
Yeah.
And I've got that receipt now of that debt being paid off plastered on
That's
my
cool.
wall. Just being like, Carlson Projects is in essence debt free at this point. So
Yeah. So I'd say there's a lot of things in there, but I'd say the tipping point was when we all had to look at each other as family members and say, either we're all going down together or all of us are going somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole goal of the whole thing was, I want to still be able to have Thanksgiving with you and love you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we navigate that? And our business coach, I'd call him our moderator at that point, really navigated that incredibly well with us. How can we navigate this well and still love each other well? Because I feel like a lot of times in family business, you just hear about all of the bickering and the backbiting and all of the craziness of family business. And we view family business, and we view business, as a tool to show what shalom would be like in society. It's like, how do we create a business that brings life to the world? And what a better way to do that than with your family?
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I want to bring you on when we connected, before having you guys, on the podcast was, this transition of second generation and what that looks like, that shift from parents to kids. I think a lot of people struggle in that business for a lot of reasons. And I think more importantly, when you think about, when I'm sure for your father starts the business, had to grind, had to figure it out, kind of set the reputation. So it's very personal, right? And then your kids come in, and of course, even though you have incredible work ethic, both of you, and you're very mature, and you have a good outlook on how you want to run the business, there's always this conflict of, the personal side of things, right? And letting go. And I think it's really hard for people to do that and navigate through that change. I mean, I'm in, I've networked with a lot of builders around the country, in my Builder 20 and other, groups. I see that friction at times, not always, but sometimes between, for you guys to have this very mature approach to say, hey, we really have to look at this, if we're going to operate, and not only just operate, but, have a relationship for holidays, which is the most important thing. As you look at now, the relationship, how involved is your dad, or is this fully transition over to you guys?
Yeah. So the way that, like, from a leadership standpoint, it's Stefan and I lead the corporation as a leadership team with one other person at this point now. So the way that we view it is that we have an ownership pool and we have a leadership pool. So the leadership team has full control over the organization. And has
very EOS.
Exactly. So the leadership team has full control over the organization. We make all the decisions day to day and that type of stuff. And so if we decide, we want to go this direction, or we want to start this new thing, or whatever else, we have full autonomy to do that. But then we have we have an ownership pool that is my mom, dad, me, and Stefan, that we meet quarterly after we have our quarterly meetings and everything else. And we go through and we just talk about big picture. Where do we want the company going? Where is it going? How's it doing financially, and those kind of things. And so what's been really great for us as sons is that our dad trusts us. And he doesn't challenge things, or he doesn't, try and skirt things or anything like that. He just emphatically trusts us with the business. And he paid for our educations, not necessarily in schooling. I did a little bit of school, but he paid for our educations in lost profit.
Real life.
Life, with his dollars, over time, where, he was willing to let us try and fail, to be able to then learn from our mistakes. And now we're reaping the rewards of that, and so are they. And so what's nice is that dad is in the company day to day, and so is mom. But dad primarily focuses on our on our roofing wing. And so dad's our roofing salesman. He goes around and does all the estimating and everything else. He kind of handles that side of it. I handle more of the leadership and the operations side of the roofing stuff within our company. Again, it's a small company. You do a lot of things. But I meet with him regularly. We're on the phone all the time and that kind of stuff. We go over to their house regularly and stuff. And so that was the thing that one of our other values is we are a team. And that came from when we were kids. We were homeschooled. And so, there would be times where I would be at mom because I'm like, I don't want to do homework or whatever else. Like, I hate school. Like, why are you telling me to do this? And dad would come back.
Doesn't like school.
Yeah. Hey man. Yeah. But, I did not like school. But dad would always come home and he'd be like, hey, we're all on the same team here. We all need to work together. We're all pulling for the same thing. And that's what we brought into the company. And so we've always tried to replicate that and do that within the family aspect, that remember, we're all on the same team here. We're not trying to fight each other. We're not trying to backstab each other. We're all pushing for the same goal. And that's, our success, but ultimately having opportunities to share the love of Jesus Christ because he's our savior. And that's why we do what we do. So.
It's incredible. I mean, it just shows, the value system you have and how you've implemented that into day to day as a company. As you think about that, how does that maybe dynamic that you've set just internally as a family, how does that impact, what's the effect on other employees for the company culture?
I think I'm trying not to cry.
I know. I've known. I mean, it's starting to hit home. I mean, sometimes it's very personal. And in fairness, to kind of give you a minute here, Stefan.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just like what I was going to say is like, you guys have been extremely vulnerable. And what I mean is, it's I think it's very personal because from afar, a lot of us may look at you or AFT and be like, oh, everything's perfect, right? Because I mean, you seem to think that if, based on what you see on Instagram, and everyone thinks it's just construction so easy, but at the core, I mean, it's a daily battle and grind to figure out your systems and trade pool and labor and budgets and making sure it works with the client's investment and, appraisals. And, there's all these different layers and timelines and, things go wrong as they always do. And, and as you're looking at the profit, you're like, hey, are we going to survive? Are we going to make this? And so, for you guys to do this and make these really hard decisions and hard changes, like, hopefully everyone listening understands the amount of grit and time that I'm sure you guys invested in this to get to this point. So, there's a huge success story, which I think you should be very proud of, and hence probably, the emotion behind it.
Yeah. I would say, so we recently lost one of our leadership team people. She passed away. I think you knew her, Heather. And I would say the biggest compliment that you can get is that person's family saying at their funeral, they were a better person because they worked for your company.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's a better compliment. Like, I could make millions of dollars and my employees could hate me. My clients could hate me, but when a family of somebody that is just around your business and saying they're a better person because they worked with you, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah. I think that's family to us is not just our family. Dad started the business to support his family. And so now we want to extend that to supporting all the other families that are within Carlson projects. And so we truly care for each of our employees at a personal level and want the best for them. And we just I mean, from our stand-up meetings in the morning where everybody hops on the phone call, we're just checking in on people, seeing what their kids are doing and that kind of stuff. And, from Christmas parties to, quarterly events or whatever it might be, it's just, we care about people more than profit. And that's the thing that, our people are our most valuable asset. I've been reading a book by Isidore Sharp on the Four Seasons, and that's what he describes. He's like, my people are the most valuable people in our organization. They're more valuable than our $1 million, $1 billion buildings and all this other kind of stuff. It's just people are the core of what we do. And especially, as you know, in a service-oriented business, especially more on the higher end of that, it's all people. It's all communication. It's all how you interact with someone. It's how you deal with issues. It's how you care for people. And that's what we love doing. We had at Heather's funeral, we had previous customers come because subcontractors come, where it's like, Heather built relationships. And that's one of our other values is we build relationships, not clients. And so like we, through our values and through our hiring process, try to find those people that care about people. And
I'd say even on keeping people on your staff just because you care about them is not caring about them.
100%.
So there is a flip side to that coin where I think people would hear us talk about our employees and just think, oh, all you do is give and give and give and give and give. And it's not that. It is, we have a culture, and if you don't fit our culture and fit our values, you're gonna either go out yourself or you're gonna be pushed gently out and say there's a better role for you somewhere else. And I think that's what a lot of business owners struggle with, is when they say that we care about our people, we care about our people. Caring for somebody and loving somebody is doing what's best for them and you. Because if you're in a relationship, if you want to use Bible terms, if you're unequally yoked, it's not going to work. And so we've had to let people go that have been very hard things to let go because we care about them as a person, but we know that the role that the company needs in order to thrive and keep the culture that it needs isn't going to work with that person in it. I just wanted to make sure that was said, because I think a lot of times people think that, caring for people is just, you're this unemptying, unfailing love of just this overflowing of just love. And it's not always that. Maybe that love sometimes looks different than just continually giving. So,
Yeah, it's interesting because company culture is always something that stuck out to me, and something that's really important. And I think you both hit on the head. A lot of people may assume company culture. Maybe it's the dynamic and the spirit and the competitiveness, and maybe it's some of the benefit package that people have. But I think at the core, what you both touched on that I've seen personally is when you have the owners of the company that look at their employees as assets, and when you say we're more worried about people than profit, people see that, they feel it, right? And you made a comment that, when people say that they're a better person because they work at a company, I've seen it where maybe a spouse comes up at, the Christmas party, and they're like, my spouse is totally different since working there, and that's affected our home life, that's affected our marriage. I don't think there's a bigger compliment that someone could have. And when you could pass on and instill that in the company from a company culture, I'd imagine you both could speak to this, that how that changes, people's approach with the customer, how, things they're bringing to the table. You mentioned EOS, leadership teams you have, information and knowledge that they're bringing in to look at how can we be better and revamp the systems and, make changes so we're all aligned, as we're moving forward.
Yeah, I think I think it's paramount, especially in a small company. We absolutely love the Founders podcast. I don't know if you listen to that one or not, but um, he's interviewing. He's not interviewing. He's reading a book on. I'm pretty sure it's Steve Jobs. And of course, Steve Jobs has all sorts of connotations around him. But one of the things he said was, I think it was when he was starting Apple, and yeah, super don't quote me on this, but it's basically, if you have 5 people on your team, if you have the one person that isn't the right fit, that is a high percentage of that 5-person team that isn't working. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times people think in small businesses, it's like, well, I just can't get the best people because I'm a small business. There's just no way that I'm going to get A players all the time. And we've taken the opposite approach, where it's like, if a player comes to us and we don't necessarily have a position for that person, we're going to hire them and figure out what they're good at, because the opportunities are going to be a little less, but it's also, that person is such a culture fit that they can exponentially increase, because it's a 5-person team and you're going, I'm going to add one A player amongst 3 other A players, and it has a drastic effect on it. And the same thing with a detraction. If you're talking, if you have that one person that isn't an A player, the detraction is so much more because you have such a small company. I don't know if that's making sense or not, but it just looking at it percentage wise, of when you have a small company, those people matter that much more, rather than having, if you have a 100-person company and you have 2 people that aren't that great, you're probably going to be able to make up that, 10% difference. Whereas in a 5-person company, if you have 2 people that aren't quite aligned, it's going to affect everything that you do.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point. It's funny. It made me think, along these lines. I had Jeremy Andrus on early on, I think probably, first year and a half I saw on the podcast, and he's the CEO of Traeger. And he talked about when he took over Traeger grills, the smokers, right, that a lot of us are familiar with, just as he's coming in and trying to work on company culture and the dynamic. And one of the points that he had noticed throughout his career, he had worked with a lot of venture capitalist companies and startup companies. And I think and so the point being is that he realized that, no matter how talented someone is, if they're a cancer to the company culture, they got to go.
Yeah.
And so what he realized was, I had some people that maybe were really talented at their job, but they were very negative, whether it was to the customer or to the people internally. And that really created a lot of difficulty. And, if you can get to the point where you have a lot of chemistry and synergy between your people, and then find a way to inspire them to get to the next level, that's really when you hit, on all cylinders, and, it really helps a company be a lot more successful.
Yeah. I completely agree.
100%. I mean, I think we've after hiring quite a few very capable A-team people or A-plus types of individuals, we're just that much more committed to that type of employee and just waiting to find those people. We're willing to, take the, I guess the little bit of loss in revenue that we wouldn't be able to do because of not having that person there or whatever else, to find that right person. And I mean, we're also super committed to just being a flat, very lean team. Especially after that many years of lost profit and that kind of stuff, you learn pretty quickly where it's like, okay, no, like, it's hard for me to even just buy like a little upgrade for the office, what I mean? Now, where it's just like, no, I don't want to go back there, but it's like, that's the kind of thing where we're just so dedicated to that. But then also when you're lean, it's a small team that you can actually, get to know and affect and everything else. I think when you're talking about culture, I think so many people think about culture as this, like Walmart. Like I used to be before I worked here, I worked at a church, and Walmart would use our offices and stuff like that for stuff, and they'd have their company cheer beforehand and everything else, and all these things that are super cringe, and stuff. And it's just like, dude, that's not culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's placating culture. You know what I mean? It's playing culture, as opposed to, I think the way that Dad taught us is he's told us to live it. Live the values that you care about and that kind of stuff. And then our business coach, the biggest thing is that it's just like, dude, just talk about your values. Talk about your values all the time, to the point where your employees are like, yeah, dude, I get it. That's our values. Like, and it's just, those, and you just see it when we get into other business groups and stuff like that with other business owners, and they're talking about culture and everything. And it's just like, they don't have a good culture in their company because they're not pushing on it. They're not talking about it. They're not, living it themselves. It's more of it's an aspirational goal as opposed to the actual thing that they're doing. And so we just really focused a lot of time on our values and just made them authentic to who we are, and just push on them all the time.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you can see it just in this podcast, as we're speaking about that. For, now that you've had this tipping point, you kind of have clarification on the company culture. You have a good, you're running pretty lean. Where do you see Carlson Projects in the next 10 years?
10 years?
To the moon.
To the moon.
You can say 5 years, but I mean,
that's our internal on.
You guys are pretty young, so you got a long ways to go.
Our internal chats are always, whenever we talk about something cool in the future, we're like, to the moon, not to Mars, not Elon Musk, not to Mars, just to the moon for now. So we realized probably 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, really, is that we've been doing a process that is a very high-end process for lower dollar amount work. So meaning we've been doing what I would say $1 million process for a $50,000 bathroom, or a $150,000 kitchen, or stuff like that. And we've realized that we can take that process and apply it to new construction. And we've slowly kind of dipped our toe into that. I'm sure you know him, but Tim at Alderview, we went out and kind of did their deep dive with them, and he was extremely helpful in making me more comfortable at dipping my toe into that new construction area, just because of the way he bids things and creates estimates. Because we've had people, for the last 5-6 years coming to us saying, hey, I want you to build a new construction house. And I would just look at him and say, like, it's just not really what we do, because we hadn't figured out how to make it profitable. And so just being able to take that time and kind of dip our toe into that, I'd say it's going to be a mix between new higher end construction, some design build, just from us, like I'll do the design and floor plan layout, some for architects and designers. And we want to scale to a very large company, because we feel like we're called to grow our influence, and not in a selfish way, like we need to look better and need to do more. But I think we have something that we want to take to more than just Lincoln, Nebraska. I don't know exactly how that's going to look and what systems it's going to take to get there. But just like our core value, never stop learning. So we're going to learn and figure out and screw up and fail to get there. So, that's where I would say we're trying to go. Yeah.
So we've been doing the remodeling thing for quite a while. And so just this next year for us, 2026, will be kind of the year that we're going to really focus on still doing remodeling, and still that higher end of remodeling and doing the same process that we're doing there. But then we're looking at trying to do 2 new million plus homes next year.
That's great.
And so we've got a couple under contract, or at least within PSAs, and that type of stuff. And so we're looking at trying to get those solidified and go through budgets and everything else. And then I'm excited because I get to do my integrator thing on the process of the new build. And so I get to run them all. And so that's the kind of thing where Stefan knows one of my favorite books is The Toyota Way. Go a week without talking about it.
Can't go a day without talking about it.
But, they always talk about going to the Gemba, and the Gemba is where like the work happens, and I think more owners, especially when you get into, where you're getting success and you're growing and that kind of stuff, a lot of times they take their eye off the Gemba. They don't go down to where the work is actually happening. And so I'm excited to just, I do that on the remodeling side, but I get to experience this, create the systems, the process, the customer side of things that they get to see, but then also the systems and processes with the subs and everything to really make that system function and flourish.
Yeah, that's incredible. So what's keeping you guys up at night now?
Oh, man.
Not bills.
Not bills.
Thankfully.
I mean, honestly,
that was
yeah, that was the worst.
That was
the worst. I couldn't look at my phone for a while. Someone would be calling you and just be like, I don't know what to tell you, dude.
Yeah.
But honestly, I don't really have anything that keeps me up at night, except for every once in a while a kid, coming into my room because they can't sleep themselves. But business wise, I mean, really, I don't have anything that keeps me up. I think the thing that keeps me up is the future.
Excitement.
Yes, it's excitement. Nothing. I don't have anything within the company that is like a stressor.
It's impressive. Very impressive.
Type of stuff. It is solely like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? How can we improve? What can we do better? Because that's. I mean, there's things that happen within every day. Every job has something that goes wrong, but that's why we never stop learning. We look at them as learning opportunities rather than failures. I mean, they are failures, but they're learning opportunities to be able to grow from. And then we all meet together, talk about it. What's the process? What's the system? How can we mitigate that on the next project? Remember it. Don't do it on the next one.
I think when you're going from staring down bankruptcy or leaving or not having your parents be able to retire, any of those stressors, like everything else feels like kind of easy. It feels very like we'll just figure it out. Like it'll happen. But I'd say the same thing for me. The things that keep me up, in the aspect of like, if I get into a thought or I get into a design, time stops for me. So I will be laying in my bed thinking about how do I move that toilet to make sure that when you walk in that door, that client doesn't see it. But we only have this, for a remodel, it's like we can only put it so many places, but how can we put it somewhere that it doesn't feel like it does now? So I'd say those are the things that either keep me up or my brain is constantly going over. Like when I'll go for a run, I'll be thinking about something and I'll come back and be like, oh, that was the solve, But that's what keeps me engaged too, is just the challenge of what we do. You mentioned that, this business isn't easy. I think if it was easy, we'd be out of this business.
Oh, heck yeah.
It would like, we just like problems. I don't know.
Yep, 100%, man.
I don't know. You're probably the same way. But I don't know what keeps you in this business.
Yeah.
Man, what keeps me in this business? It's a great question. I think at the end of the day, there's something to be said about building, right? Construction, seeing, I think what's unique to our industry is you get to see the emotions of some of our clients who maybe have never built before and you're building their dream, right? Of something they've worked their whole life and see, for example, we have a client right now that did a little marketing piece for us. And, for them, this is a big deal. This is like everything they work for. And they're like, we're going to raise our babies in this house. You just think about that. And yeah. And more importantly, I mean, you touched on this. I think for me, there's a lot of pride to have, a team of people that are supporting their families, and
Yeah.
that legacy, and to see people enjoying their career and, seeing, these projects go up and work on new ones. I don't know. There's something to be said about just that lasting legacy, kind of like you guys touched on.
Yeah.
100%.
Do you guys do anything in your houses to like brand them at all? Like when you're done with them, like so that everybody in the future, if they remodel that house, they know it was a AFT house?
It's funny. We haven't yet. We do like a pretty unique care package for them, when they move in, and a key that's has to do like AFT, but nothing in the house itself. What about you guys?
We don't.
We haven't, because it's just been more of like remodel stuff. So it'd be like just that aspect of it. We try and do this kind of a similar care package thing, but I have a buddy that did a lot of really large remodel work in Portland area. And he said that he remodeled like 4 houses, and every single one of the walls he found like this wine that this builder would put in all of his houses. And so I've thought about doing like something like that, where you sneak something behind a wall, like some sort of scotch, something like that, where it necessarily wouldn't be found unless you're remodeling. But it's kind of a trinket of the past. When somebody remodels something in 100 years, they find little nuggets of who did it. But yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, what do you guys do for fun as we close this out?
Oh, what do we do for fun? What do you do for fun?
Business?
Yeah.
No, for me, I love. So I almost every year go on a motorcycle trip, and with all of my friends, and we camp every night, and we just get out in the middle of nowhere and ride amazing roads and just kind of be with nature for a week or so. Same thing. We love the ocean, as I know you do as well. And so, like, just trying to get there with being landlocked is a little more difficult. But
yeah, it's a little hike.
Yeah, but we love that. I love being with my kids and just playing with them, and that's mostly it.
Yeah. Well, if it's kids and beach, you can't go wrong. So
yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's family for sure. I love traveling with my family. My kids have always been super good travelers. We have a lot of family in Texas on my wife's side, and so we travel down there at least 3 to 4 times a year. And so I love spending time with my kids in the car. It's just fun. People can't say that, and so I enjoy that. And then for me, a little different one is I love doing security work. So at my church, I run the security team, and so I get to go out on the range and teach people how to, shoot pistols and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a fun thing. Those are like my main 2 things. Stefan knows that when I was younger, I was like hobby man. Like it was everything. I mean, we wakeboarded, we skateboarded, we BMX, we rollerbladed, we did everything, soccer, everything. And so when I got married, I realized that I can't do everything if I want to stay married. And so I had to pare it down to like 2 things. And that for me now is like work and security. And so those are like my main fun things besides working out, but that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. What do you do for fun?
So probably similar. I mean, spending time with the kids a lot, like especially now at this stage of life, it's really fun. We're that a stage where they love to travel. I have my oldest daughter getting married, so we're making as much time as we can before, that next phase. Although we love, our future son-in-law, they're great together. So, a lot of travel on an individual for sure. Trying to stay active. Golf. I play in a lot of basketball leagues still, city leagues, and yeah, gym with a lot of our employees are kind of on this fitness thing. So a lot of the employees here, we're all working out at Lifetime together, and so that's fun bonding and just trying to slow that aging process and stress that construction brings. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you dunk?
I was able to dunk until COVID. I'm 45 now, but I was able to dunk when I was 40. I can't now. I've been don't skip leg day, but I can't dunk. I lost that. It gets past you. So, but it's fun. Yeah, I really enjoy it. Play with a lot of good friends, a lot of good basketball here in Arizona. So it's good.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
So for younger guys in the business and that kind of stuff, what would be one piece of advice that you would have for us?
Oh, for what I would say is, I mean, you mentioned you went and followed Tim, at Olderview. I think you have to align yourselves with people that have built successful businesses and figure out how. I think there's so many layers to it. And I think really where I'm going is I speak about this so much on the podcast is, we're business owners that happen to focus in construction. And I think that's missed a lot. And so you have to really understand business and how to run your business. And there's so many layers to that, from accounting principles and how to read a balance sheet, understand cash flow and WIP and different KPIs to, hiring and systems and protocol and of course building. I mean, look, Mark LaLiberte, who's a building science, he's like, hey, he kind of piggybacks off me that, yeah, Brad will talk to you about business, but I'm going to teach you how to build a home that's going to perform and last, so you're not in lawsuits and you don't have water intrusion and you're flashing properly. And so, yeah, you may be good at one or the other, maybe good at business, but not the actual construction operation, or you may be great because you grew up in the trade your whole life. You don't know how to run the business, but you better do both. So, figure out, and it's different courses and networking events and places you can go to learn both. But I think finding good mentors is a good way to get there. So,
yeah, 100% agree on the mentor side.
What was your single best hire that you made?
Oh, wow. Now what happens when all my employees listen to this?
You don't have to give names.
Roles.
Yeah, you don't have to give names. Like, what was
pseudonyms?
Yeah, what was like
John Smith?
Yeah, what was it? You don't have to give names.
They would know. They'd know right away, even though we're a decent sized company. But I mean, to answer that, I think you both mentioned you're part of EOS. I think kind of my tipping point was really understanding, do you have the right people on the bus and are they in the right role? Mm-hmm. And so when I realized, as we've worked the last couple of years to understand the value of what that role looks like, we definitely have some key people in each of the roles. And we have a leadership team where we meet regularly as leadership. So I'd say just a leadership council that you're having regularly within the company, as well as making sure people are on the right bus. And it'll help with retainage. It'll help with culture. It'll help with, integration, as Scott does. I mean, there's so many layers to that. So,
yeah.
Cool. Well, you guys are awesome. Well, let us know before we close here. How did they find you?
Carlson Projects Inc. on anything. So carlsonprojectsinc.com, Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube,
the whole thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Website. We try and stay active on there as much as possible. So feel free to shoot us a message.
Yep. We'd love to talk to you about family business or any of that kind of stuff. If you guys got questions, any of those kind of things, we're willing to share whatever. So our stories for the community.
Well, for anyone not watching this live, I mean, they may see in the highlights when I post on social media, but change the way you live, right? That's what you're saying in the background. So
100%.
Can't thank you guys enough, Stefan and Scott, for joining us and appreciate the time you made today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.